Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Joey, and welcome back to another video here on my channel. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys two meta, fun, diverse builds for the Spinnerex. In 2025, this weapon was the winner of the weapons poll, and I had you guys vote on what you wanted to see next. For any of you who voted for other items in the poll, do not worry, as I will be posting another poll today with the three other items that were not selected, as well as a new item for you guys to choose as well. So have no worry about that. Your chances are still coming here for an opportunity to see the weapons that you want to see. Now, getting into my first build that I have for you guys today, the first build is going to be this build right here. Now, before actually getting into the build itself, I want to talk about the passive of this weapon, because the passive is really the whole bread and butter of this weapon. So what it says is, on death, enemies have a 10% chance to burst for each stack of toxin status effect applied to them. This spreads toxin damage. So, toxin can be very easily stacked when you have tons of status chance. We have things like Galvanized Elementalist, we have Weeping Wounds. We're going to be able to stack 10 stacks of toxin without any problems on a single target. So single target toxin status apply is not really so difficult. So you think to yourself, how are you going to apply it to a mass group? Well, the obvious choice here is melee influence. But you think to yourself, okay, but this weapon has raw toxin. I need to account for all these different things if I want to go for the raw toxin melee influence build. Well, you actually don't. We can get melee influence to proc from external sources. We are going to be using Diriga to proc it. So the reason I am using Diriga here is because Electro Pulse is capable of procking melee influence. Now understand, this will only proc if enemies are attacking you. If you're trying to use this in the sim and you have the enemies paused, the enemies will not get this to proc because they won't be attacking you. You can read about it on the wiki, it's on there as well. But just understand that before you go testing it for yourself and think it's not working, because the enemies need to be attacking you. So this will very, very easily and constantly be able to proc melee influence for us, so we don't actually need to worry about modding for electric on the weapon itself. So what we do instead is we go for Coiling Viper, we go for Virulent Scourge. It's going to give us status chance plus raw toxin, since we're going for only toxin on this. We have Lasting Sting on here for status duration, as this is going to be a long-standing chaining weapon, so having high status duration to bump our status effects up to 12 seconds from the original 6 is going to be really, really nice for helping our chains be continuous. We have Galvanized Elementalist on here. This is going to be status chance plus status damage. So it's our status damage multiplier, as well as a free 120% status chance. We have Primed Fever Strike on here for 165% toxin damage. Now we're just going pure toxin on this, so this is going to be very, very nice for our toxin scaling. We go Prime Pressure Point on here, as this weapon has no CO, because it has, well, I don't want to say it has no CO. It has no IPS, it has no other elements. So realistically, if you're running CO on here without any external source of priming, you're only getting 80%. So just go for Prime Pressure Point if you're just going to be using a basic build like this with no external sources. And I'll talk about CO scenarios in a bit. So we also have Weeping Wounds on here. This is for big status chance stacking. You don't need to use Naramon, but still, this is very handy for you. We have Primed Smite Grenier on here. This is our faction damage multiplier, as well as our Double Dipper. Very, very handy to have this on our build. It's going to help us do a ton of damage, and it's also going to be very beneficial for the damage of the passive when it spreads the toxin out. We have Primed Reach on here for another 3 range overall to get us up to 6 meters, which is pretty feasible. And now I will display to you guys how this works. Now, the reason I'm on Gauss isn't for anything to do with Gauss, himself. It's literally just to be able to hit these enemies while they're attacking me without having to worry about my HP bar or anything. As you can see here, it's just Gauss is just really stupid. So yeah, you see my influence procs, and now you can just hit the enemies. You're going to spread your toxin to all of them. You can see like 101 procs on this guy. And then they'll continuously tick down. They'll take a bunch of damage. Now, this is with 0 external sources, no melee arcanes or boosters from any abilities or anything. This is just me getting influence to proc. And you can see getting your toxin procs out is relatively simple, actually. You can see how easy it is when you have melee influence up in the raw toxin build to just spread them out. You can see 150 stacks on this guy. We have really long status duration, so you can see how long I don't have to hit them for, and they still just end up getting ticked down. So if you guys are looking to use this as like a base form weapon without any external help, like a shock trooper, something to proc the influence, Diriga is a great way to proc influence, and this is a really, really solid way to get the toxin damage out. Now, this is, like I said, probably the most basic way you could use this. There are other ways you could use this. such as things like Shock Trooper. Shock Trooper makes this weapon and this exact same build pretty much do what Diriga is going to do, but it allows for other frames to use their kit. So we have characters like Citrine here, where Citrine is able to use things like Shock Trooper, and then she can use the gem, and the gem will actually be able to spread element for you, and you can see how much quicker the enemies are able to get killed here by me, because they're able to take so much more toxin damage from these other sources, as well as they are taking the electric damage from me now as well, from the Shock Trooper that I have, which is significant. I'm not going to downplay it's 179% pure electric damage. That's very nice electric values. It's pretty much just a bit less than the toxin that we have modded on this weapon. So you can see that you get so much value out of the gem with a weapon like this, because it's applying the 4 base elements, so it's going to apply toxin. Now you can just see you only have to swing a couple times and it'll chain up. So you could use it in this sort of way if you so wanted to. You could also use it on something like Saryn. Saryn is totally capable of using this, because Saryn, like I said, you're able of running things like Shock Trooper on Saryn, but on Saryn you get even more. You get things like Toxic Lash, and you get spores, so you're going to be able to scale your toxin super hard by modding for it the way we've modded for it on the weapon. You're going to be able to get the value out of Shock Trooper itself, and you're going to get corrosive. So now what ends up happening is you're actually able to use Condition Overload, because Condition Overload is now going to be able to give you upwards of 3+ elements now instead of just the 1, so you're getting more value than you're getting out of Prime Pressure Points. So you actually can go for this now. And the reason this works so well is because, like I said, Toxic Lash scales really, really hard. Just with faction damage, with status damage multiplier, with modded on toxin damage. Now you could see this one. The only thing I'm not a huge fan about with Saryn is that sometimes you just don't really get all the toxin procs that you're looking for. I noticed that with Citrine, things like that, you'll get a lot more toxin procs. You'll still be able to kill enemies very fast. But if you pay attention here to the procs above their head, you can see, like, over a couple of swings here, this guy only has, what, 9 toxin procs on him? Which really isn't all that much for having, like, full buff stacked up, aside from, like, a max stack of Weeping Wounds. So that's just what ends up happening with something like this. Now, what you could also do, too, on Saryn, is you could run something like this. Now, what the problem with this is running normally is this is how you would normally want to run your melee influence, is you want your base electric, but the problem is you need base toxin coming from somewhere. So that either needs to be from an ability, it needs to be from like anabolic pollination from the Pharaoh, it needs to be from something. Because you need to be able to apply raw toxin to these enemies. So you need raw toxin that doesn't combine. So if you want to go for any sort of combining element on this, the toxin has to be accounted for, and then you go for electric. But the reason that we could actually go for more on this is because we're actually going to be able to get more out of. We're going to have electric plus gas, and then we're going to need our third element, which is going to be coming from Toxic Lash. So we're going to have the high value out of Condition Overload once again. So pretty much this build is exactly the same. We just have gas plus electric here, then just status damage multiplier, Bane, Weeping Wounds, Condition Overload, and then Primed Reach plus melee influence. Now this one, you don't need Shock Trooper to be able to proc melee influence, which is really nice, but you do need, like I said, a source of toxin. So if you see, if I go out to these enemies here, I can hit them, but they're not getting any toxin on them. They're just getting hit by like electric and gas. But if you use Saryn's third ability, now you're applying toxin. So now you could actually use something like electric, gas, toxin, and deal a ton of damage. And if you want to take it even further, you could use corrosive as well on top of that to strip their armor to do even more damage for your gas. So now you're getting that kind of result. So realistically, you either need to account for the electric from an external source, or the toxin needs to be accounted for from an external source. Make sure all of your multipliers are in order, and then you're going to be able to really dish out some ridiculous damage like this. That's why things like Saryn and Citrine are working so well, but plenty of other frames will work just fine, believe me. So this is a really, really powerful build overall. So if you guys enjoyed the video today, definitely leave a like down below, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a ton. I'm going to be leaving another poll up with more weapons for you guys to vote on. So if you guys enjoyed the video today, I appreciate you guys staying and watching the video till now, and have a wonderful rest of your day.